Her toothbrush disappeared from the holder on a Wednesday. That was the first real sign. Not the silence, not the long sleeves in summer, not even the charger she started hiding in her purse. It was the toothbrush. The pink one with the worn bristles she always said she'd replace and never did. I stared at that empty space in the bathroom for too long that morning. I even moved my own brush to her spot just to see if it made a difference. It didn't. Nothing did anymore. The nights were worse. She'd started going to sleep in sweatpants. Not the cute kind, the heavy, shapeless ones, like she was suiting up for emotional distance. I tried to cuddle once, and she told me I was too warm. I offered to open the window. She told me she needed space. I offered to sleep on the couch. She said that'd be dramatic. I slept next to her like a statue, afraid to breathe too loud. Last weekend, she came home at 2:17 a.m. I know because I'd been pretending to sleep since 11. She tiptoed through the house like I was the guest. No explanation, no apology. Just the sound of her slipping under the covers, back turned. I whispered, "Everything okay?" She sighed and said, "Don't start." Start what? A conversation? A marriage? Yesterday, I accidentally touched her phone. Not went through it, touched it. We were both reaching for the car keys on the counter, and my hand grazed her screen. She snatched it so fast you'd think I triggered a bomb. Didn't look at me. Didn't say a word. Just walked out the door and left the keys behind. So I sat on the stairs for half an hour, just holding the keys in my hand, wondering how it got like this. That brings me to this morning. She left early. Earlier than usual. I woke up and heard the door click shut, then saw the closet. 2 pairs of shoes were missing. The dress she never wears was gone. The red one with the high neckline she once told me made her feel invisible. She used to wear that dress for me. Now she wears it for someone else. I checked the bathroom again. Still no toothbrush. That was the morning I stopped pretending she loved me. That was the morning I realized I'd already been left. I just hadn't walked away yet. After that morning with the missing toothbrush, I began noticing tiny patterns I'd been blind to before. Her car smelled like a different cologne than mine. Faint but unmistakable, like cedar and citrus. Her phone was suddenly always face down, even when she showered. She began leaving grocery lists on the counter as if she were making a record of proof she'd been somewhere, but the fridge stayed empty. It wasn't just that she was gone physically. It was like she was staging a play where I was the only audience, and I wasn't supposed to notice the holes in the script. And yet I did. I noticed everything, because when you're ignored for weeks, your brain becomes a magnifying glass over every detail. I tried to talk to her about it once more at dinner. I'd made chili because it used to be her favorite. She sat across from me, scrolling on her phone with her fork resting on the edge of the bowl. I said, "Cambria, we need to talk." She didn't even look up. She just said, "Dorian, not tonight." That crushed me more than if she'd screamed. Not tonight. Like there was some other night when my marriage was scheduled to matter. I remember staring at her hands and realizing I didn't even know her nails anymore. They were painted a color she'd never worn for me, a muted silver. I asked softly, "Do you even see me anymore?" She put the phone down, stared past me and said, "You always make everything about you." Then she got up and left the table. That night, I ate cold chili alone, hearing the shower run upstairs, and wondered if I'd somehow become a villain in her story without a single clue how. 2 days later, while I was sitting in my car at a gas station trying to think of reasons not to call my brother and tell him everything, I saw her drive past. She didn't see me. She was laughing in her car, head tilted back, with someone in the passenger seat, a man I didn't recognize. It wasn't like a movie moment. There was no dramatic slow motion, no tears. Just me, sitting there holding a plastic cup of gas station coffee, watching my wife's car disappear into traffic while my heart tried to climb out of my chest. I didn't chase them. I didn't call. I just sat there, thinking about the toothbrush and the empty grocery bags and the chili going cold. That night, she came home late again, hair slightly damp as if she'd showered somewhere else. She looked at me and said, "Why are you up?" I wanted to say, "Because I'm your husband," but all that came out was, "Just couldn't sleep." She nodded, walked past me, and shut the bedroom door. I slept on the couch. I told myself it was temporary, that maybe this was a phase, that maybe she'd wake up and remember who I was. But deep down, sitting there in the dim light of the living room, listening to the tick of the wall clock and the faint buzz of her phone upstairs, I knew The only person who hadn't left yet was me. And for the first time, the idea of leaving didn't feel like surrender. It felt like the only way to stop being invisible. I wasn't planning to check her calendar. That wasn't the kind of husband I wanted to become. But when you spend enough nights on the couch listening to your wife talk in her sleep, names you don't recognize, laughs you haven't heard in weeks, you start searching for something to hold on to. Something that proves you're not crazy. Something that says, yes, this is real, and no, it's not your fault. She had a dentist appointment on Friday, 11:30 a.m. According to the Google Calendar we used to share before she stopped inviting me to anything. I happened to be off work that day, and I don't even know why I did it. Maybe I was looking for reassurance. Maybe I just wanted to see her smile at me through a windshield again, but I drove past the dental office around noon. Her car wasn't there. I waited 20 minutes. Still nothing. I called the office. They said she'd rescheduled for next month. My hands started sweating before I even hung up. When she got home that evening, she smelled faintly of hotel soap. I knew that scent. It wasn't from our house, and it sure as hell wasn't from a dentist. I watched her kick off her shoes and toss her bag on the chair without a second thought. I asked, "How was the appointment?" And she paused, for half a breath, before answering, "Fine. Quick. Just a cleaning." She didn't even look me in the eye when she said it. That one lie, so ordinary, so polished, felt worse than a slap. She didn't stutter. She didn't hesitate. She was fluent in deceiving me now. That night I couldn't sleep, so I walked through the house like a ghost. In the kitchen, her bag was still on the chair. I stood there staring at it for minutes. I wasn't going to touch it. I swore I wouldn't. But my hand moved anyway, like it had a mind of its own. Inside the side pocket, a hotel key card. White. No logo. Just a black magnetic strip and the number 418 written in faded Sharpie. I didn't even know what to do with it. I held it like it might burn me. Then I slipped it back, exactly where I found it, and stood in the dark kitchen trying to breathe like a normal person. My heart was thudding like I'd run a marathon. My wife was cheating on me, and instead of confronting her, I was standing there wondering if she'd notice I touched the zipper. That's how far gone I was. That's what she'd reduced me to. A man terrified of setting off a lie he wasn't even allowed to name. The next morning, I pretended nothing had happened. She made toast. I asked her if she wanted eggs. She said no. We were two actors reading lines from different scripts, performing a play neither of us believed in anymore. But I smiled. I asked how she slept. I nodded when she told me she'd had weird dreams. I even kissed the top of her head as she left, like some pathetic tradition I refused to let die. And then I did something I'd never done before. I followed her. I didn't even have a plan. I just grabbed my keys and stayed 2 cars behind. She didn't go to work. She didn't even get on the highway. She pulled into a gas station, waited for a minute, and then another car pulled up beside her. A gray sedan. Newer. Shinier. Driven by a man with sunglasses and perfect posture. She got into his car without even looking around. And just like that, they drove off. Not toward any dentist. Not toward any office. And definitely not toward anything that included me. I didn't chase them. I don't know why. Maybe because I knew where it would lead, or maybe because part of me didn't want to see the hotel in real life. I just sat there at the edge of the gas station lot, gripping the wheel like it could anchor me to a version of my life that no longer existed. The two of them disappeared into traffic like they'd rehearsed it 100 times. She didn't even glance in the rearview mirror. She didn't expect anyone to follow. And she was right. I didn't. Instead, I drove to the park where we used to go when we first moved in together. Back when money was tight and date night meant lukewarm coffee and splitting a brownie from the corner cafe. I sat on the same bench we carved our initials into with a dull key. The carving was still there. Weathered. Shallow. Like everything else now. I watched a couple walk past holding hands. They were laughing at something, probably a podcast or an inside joke. I couldn't even imagine what laughter between us sounded like anymore. It had been months. Maybe more. Somewhere along the way, our house stopped echoing joy. It only echoed noise. Drawers closing, footsteps on the stairs, the buzz of her phone vibrating against the nightstand at 1:03 a.m. It buzzed every night at 1:03. Like clockwork. When I got home, I didn't say anything. I didn't mention the car, the man, the hotel key card, the missing shoes, the dentist. Nothing. I just acted like I had been out running errands. She barely acknowledged me. Just mumbled, "Hey," and went back to folding laundry on the bed. I watched her press her hands into the warm fabric like she was grounding herself. She folded my shirt, one I hadn't worn in weeks. It still smelled like me. I wondered if that bothered her. If touching my things made her skin crawl now. That night, I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling. She was already asleep. Or pretending. I could hear her breathing, slow, calm. Too calm for someone who just spent the day pretending not to lie. I wanted to reach out, to shake her awake, to ask, why? But I didn't. Because I already knew. She wasn't just cheating on me. She'd moved on entirely. Mentally. Emotionally. She'd outgrown the version of us that I was still clinging to like a child holding a worn-out toy. She had someone new. Someone she chose over me, again and again. Every day she left without saying goodbye. And yet here I was, in our bed, in our home, breathing in rhythm with a ghost of a marriage. At 1:03 a.m., her phone buzzed again. She didn't move. But I did. I got up quietly, walked to the kitchen, and opened the drawer where we keep the passports, the documents, the things you don't throw away. And then I grabbed a pen. I didn't write anything poetic. I didn't write accusations or threats or confessions. Just a note. I know. I left it next to her phone. Not to scare her. Not to punish. Just to stop disappearing. And then I did something I hadn't done in months. I packed a bag. Not a dramatic suitcase full of broken memories. Just a small duffel. 2 shirts. A hoodie. My old sketchbook. And a toothbrush, mine. Because I may not know where I'm going. But I finally know I don't belong here anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I lay awake in the guest room I hadn't used in years, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow like it was counting down something. The note I'd left, I know, burned in my mind like a lit fuse. Part of me wondered if she'd find it and say something. Part of me hoped she wouldn't. But the silence in that house was so loud it made my ears ring. The kind of silence that dares you to speak first. That makes you question your own worth just for wanting to be heard. By sunrise, I was sitting on the porch with a mug of black coffee I didn't drink. I stared at the driveway, wondering if she'd come out and say anything. Nothing. Just birds, wind, and the faint hum of the neighbor's sprinkler system kicking on like always. It was so normal it made me sick. Around 8 a.m., I heard the door creak open behind me. She stepped out. No makeup. Hair still damp from the shower. She looked tired, but not the kind of tired you talk about. The kind you hide because it's tied to guilt. She didn't sit down. She didn't even look at me. She just asked, "Did you move my phone last night?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't want to lie, but I also didn't want to give her the satisfaction of a confrontation. So I just said, "You got a message at 1:03. Like always. That made her blink. Like I'd spoken a secret out loud. Like I'd pulled the curtain back on a play she thought I wasn't watching. She didn't ask anything else. She just turned and went back inside. I stayed out there for an hour, maybe 2. Eventually, I went back in to grab my bag, but she was in the hallway, standing in front of the door like she knew. Like she could feel I wasn't coming back. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just said 5 words I'll never forget. "Where are you going, Marcus?" My blood turned to ice. "Marcus. I'm not Marcus." There was a pause. Long, heavy. Her eyes widened just a bit. Just enough to confirm everything. Then she tried to backpedal. I meant Dorian," she said too quickly. "I'm tired. Tired. Always tired. Tired enough to forget her husband's name and replace it with someone else's. Tired enough to accidentally say the one thing I never wanted to hear out loud. That was the moment. Not the hotel key, not the lies, not even the 1:03 a.m. messages. That name. That was the knife. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just stepped around her and picked up my bag. She didn't stop me. But as I reached the door, she said, "Please don't leave like this." I turned back and said, "You left a long time ago. I'm just finally catching up." Then I walked out. Not into freedom. Not into clarity. But into something I hadn't felt in months. Control. I didn't know where I'd sleep. I didn't know what came next. But I knew one thing. My name wasn't Marcus. And I deserved to be remembered. The motel I checked into was the kind of place people only stay when they've got nowhere else to go or something to hide. It smelled like bleach and cigarette ash, and the walls were paper thin. I could hear the guy in the next room snoring through a muffled sports channel. The bedspread was stiff, the kind with floral prints that try to look cheerful but just remind you of every bad decision you've ever made. I stood in that room for a long time before sitting down. Didn't even unpack. Just kept my bag on the floor like I wasn't sure if I was staying for an hour or forever. I checked my phone. Nothing. No missed calls. No texts. No apology. She didn't even try. I don't know why that hit me harder than everything else. Harder than the cheating, the name slip, the toothbrush, the gas station rendezvous. But it did. Because even after I left, she didn't care enough to ask if I was okay. I wasn't expecting a grand gesture. Just something. A single text. Even just, "Where are you?" would have been enough. But there was nothing. She had let me go before I'd even closed the door. That night, I tried to sleep but couldn't. I laid there fully dressed on top of the sheets, staring at the yellow light buzzing in the hallway through the thin curtain. I kept checking my phone like a fool, even though I already knew she wasn't going to reach out. Around 2 a.m., I cracked. I opened my email and started typing a message. Not to her. To Marcus. I had no idea who he was, or if he even knew I existed. But his name haunted me. So I typed, "Hi Marcus. You don't know me, but I think you know my wife." I didn't send it. I just stared at the draft for 10 minutes, then deleted it. Not because I didn't want him to know, but because I realized he wasn't the one who owed me anything. She was, and she gave me nothing. The next morning, I went down to the front desk to extend the room for another night. The clerk, young guy, maybe 22, probably used to seeing drunk breakups and people who forgot anniversaries, looked at me, blinked, and said, "Rough night." I don't know what came over me. I just nodded and said, "Yeah, my wife forgot who I am." He paused, like he wasn't sure if I meant it metaphorically. Then he handed me the new room key and said, "Some people only remember you when you're gone." That hit me like a punch to the chest. I didn't even say thank you. Just took the key and walked back up the stairs with that line echoing in my head. Some people only remember you when you're gone. I checked my phone again. Still nothing. But that's when it happened. I noticed something strange. A voicemail from an unknown number, timestamped at 1:11 a.m. I hadn't heard the phone ring. There was no transcription. Just a blank message waiting to be opened. I put the phone to my ear, hit play, and then I heard it. Breathing. Ragged. Panicked. And then a whisper. "Dorian, I think I made a mistake." And the line cut out. I replayed the voicemail a dozen times. Maybe more. Each time hoping I'd catch something new. A background noise, a name, anything. But it was always the same. Her voice, cracked and afraid, whispering my name like it still belonged to her. And that one sentence. "I think I made a mistake." That word, think, clung to me like a thorn. Not "I know." Not "I'm sorry." Just "I think." Like even in the middle of her crisis, she wasn't sure if I was worth choosing. That voicemail could have shattered me weeks ago. But now, it just pissed me off. Because I was finally starting to feel something besides heartbreak. I didn't call her back. I didn't text. Instead, I sat on the edge of that hard motel bed and let every scene from the last few months play in my mind like a reel from someone else's life. The silent dinners. The cold glances. The smell of someone else's cologne on her coat. Her lips moving for another man, but not for me. All of it. She didn't just make a mistake. She made a choice. Again and again. And now that the shiny version of Marcus had probably dulled in real life, now that the fantasy started showing cracks, she was crawling back, not out of love, but regret. Or worse, loneliness. Around noon, I stepped outside for air. The parking lot was nearly empty except for a white SUV with tinted windows that hadn't been there yesterday. I don't know why I noticed it. Maybe something in my gut was tuning back into survival mode. I walked a full loop around the motel. When I came back, it was still there. Same angle. Engine off. I walked past it slowly. There was no driver. But the passenger seat had a familiar jacket. Burgundy. Wool. With a gold zipper. Her jacket. I stopped. My first instinct was to run. To disappear again before she got the chance to rewrite the narrative. But I didn't. I stood there, staring at that SUV, wondering if she was waiting inside, curled up behind the tinted glass, rehearsing what she'd say. Or maybe she'd sent someone else. I'd seen too many movies. None of the thoughts made sense. Then the motel door behind me creaked. I turned slowly, heart racing. But it wasn't her. It was the front desk clerk, holding a piece of folded paper in his hand. "Guy in the SUV told me to give you this if I saw you," he said, shrugging like it wasn't his business. My stomach dropped. I took the note. No envelope. Just handwriting I didn't recognize. Definitely not hers. It said, "You don't know the whole story, but you will soon. Please don't go anywhere yet." No name. No signature. Just that. I looked back at the SUV. It was gone. No engine sound. No taillights. Just vanished. My mind spiraled in directions I didn't want it to. What didn't I know? What else had been hidden? I thought the cheating was the worst part. The lies. The emotional vacancy. But this felt like something else entirely. And suddenly, I wasn't sure if I was the one who walked away, or if I had been pushed. I didn't leave the motel that day. Not because I was scared. Not because I was hoping she'd come back. But because that note shook something loose in me. I'd spent weeks thinking I knew the shape of the betrayal. The edges were sharp and familiar. The silence, the phone calls, the name Marcus. But this, someone else writing me, warning me not to leave. It added a new layer to the story I thought I already hated. That night, I sat in the motel parking lot with the note in my hand, like it was some ancient scroll. I just kept reading that last sentence. Please don't go anywhere yet. So I waited. And at 9:14 p.m., a knock came at my motel room door. I didn't answer right away. My heart was thudding too hard. When I finally cracked it open, I didn't see Cambria. I saw Marcus. Yeah, him. I knew it was him instantly. He looked exactly like the kind of man she would choose after checking out of our marriage. Perfectly groomed, expensive watch, calculated calm. But he didn't look smug. He looked tense, like someone about to deliver news no one wants to say out loud. "I know you don't want to see me," he said, "but I didn't come to fight. I came to tell you something she never will." I let him in, not because I trusted him, but because I needed the ending. I couldn't let this story loop forever in my head, rewriting itself in darker shades. We sat. No handshakes. Just silence. Then he said, "She lied to both of us." I didn't interrupt. I let him talk. Turns out, Marcus didn't know she was married until a week ago. He'd met her at a conference 3 months back. She introduced herself with her maiden name. Said she lived alone. No kids. No husband. Just figuring things out after a breakup. He believed her. Why wouldn't he? They started seeing each other casually. Mostly hotels. Late nights. No photos. No questions. He thought she was just emotionally guarded, not cheating. And then last week, by accident, he found a piece of mail in her purse. With my last name. My address. He confronted her. She confessed. Not everything, but enough. Said she was stuck in a marriage with a man who didn't see her. Claimed I was controlling, passive-aggressive, and barely around. Marcus told me he didn't buy it. Not anymore. That's why he left the voicemail. That's why he came to find me. "I thought you should hear it from someone other than her," he said. "You deserve better than what she made you believe." And then he stood up and left. No excuses. No ego. Just a man who'd also been lied to and wanted to set the record straight. I sat there for hours afterward, numb. Not because I didn't believe him. I did. But because for the first time in months, I wasn't angry. I was free. Free from the lies. Free from the guessing. Free from the loop of blame I'd been circling every night on the couch. She hadn't chosen Marcus over me. She hadn't chosen anyone. She'd been running from herself. A few days later, Cambria texted me. Just one sentence. "I understand if you hate me, but I'm sorry." I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because there was nothing left to say. I moved out officially a week later. Got my own place on the other side of town. Nothing fancy, but quiet. Peaceful. I bought a new toothbrush. New sheets. I even bought a dog. A rescue mutt with floppy ears who follows me everywhere like I'm the most important person on earth. And you know what? Maybe I am. Not to her. Not to Marcus. But to me. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not broken. I'm just beginning.